On this edition of the Sell More Merch podcast, we are going to be talking with our friend Nathan from F&M Expressions about the benefits and opportunities that come for apparel decorators when you start thinking in new ways around screen printed heat transfers. And so with that, JP Hunt is with me, and I'm Kevin Houchin, and we're going to get right into the content and ask Nathan to introduce himself and give us just a quick history of F&M Expressions.
Well, hi. First, thanks for having me on the podcast. I really appreciate the time you guys taken. My name is Nathan. I grew up in this industry. I'm a second generation decorator. So growing up, my father, he actually started a t-shirt shop in my hometown. He had a second retail location a couple towns over. So I grew up with a screen printing shop that was attached to our family's home in the garage, catching t-shirts. I have, my baby book features pictures of me at the end of the dryer, sitting in a high chair as my dad was printing shirts throughout the night that he's going to take into the retail store for the next day, servicing local high school. So I grew up that way. Went and got an education and went to actually I was a teacher for a little while, but I always had this industry in my blood. I give my father a lot of credit for dragging me to trade shows. I used to lie about my age to get into the ISS show circuit and work the booth with them. So I had a lot of exposure to the business and had contacts and just had an opportunity to get involved with FM back in 2006, and it's when I joined the company.
Well, I lied about my age, but it was for a lot of other things instead. So, good on you for using it to good business purposes. So, tell us a little bit about F&M and where it came from, and what you're doing now, and kind of the goals that are coming forward, and then we'll get into how you might be able to help our listeners.
Yeah, so F&M has been around since we're branded as FM now. So I still have a bad habit that I get corrected on internally here by using the ampersand. But started in 1981, really servicing the t-shirt sort of boardwalk shops, the resort locations. The business was built around just selling transfers, really a longer lead time, higher volume model. And I joined the company in 2006. And took the approach of targeting the smaller quantity market and really seeing that evolution as the market moved to smaller order quantities, lower MOQs, faster turnaround time. So when I joined, we were turning things around in 3 weeks. Minimum order was 500 units. And today, everything is turned around in 24 to 48 hours. 70% of our work turns in 24 hours. The rest is in 48. And we're doing, as little as one piece in a screen print and heat transfer. So I got to see a lot of growth. I've been here about 14 years, and I've seen the company multiply 14 times over that season. So it's been a fun run watching a company evolve. We service now the local t-shirt shop, anywhere from your small t-shirt shop like my dad started that I grew up in, all the way to enterprise companies who are doing e-commerce retail and brands that are using heat transfers, really in a vertical commerce model where they're using transfers for inventory flexibility and decorating difficult to decorate substrates.
And Nathan, before we get too much further into our content and Q&A, I want to assume for a moment one of our listeners has never heard of the concept of a heat transfer, a screen printed heat transfer, and they're not familiar with sort of the value chain. And so if you would, maybe just give us some context here. And in your words, tell us a little bit about the process and tell us about sort of the mechanics of a screen printed heat transfer.
Yeah, so heat transfer is a broad generic term, and it can be produced a few different ways, right? So many customers are familiar with heat transfer vinyl or heat transfer film, where they're actually cutting out a film and making a decal or a transfer from that. That's one method. What we do is a screen printed heat transfer. So we're actually screen printing. We use Plastisol and water-based ink. We're making a screen just like a direct screen printer would, but we're reversing out the image, printing it mirrored, and printing it onto a paper substrate, a carrier, or a polyester carrier substrate that then can be used to transfer onto the garment. So you get the benefits of the screen printing process without it being directly applied to the apparel. So it's an indirect method, and it provides some flexibility around what you choose to put that graphic on. Now, there's also digital transfers, and you may have seen those. You can go to Staples and get the digital transfer that you run through your inkjet printer. That's not the same type of process that we use. It's more of a hobbyist method. What we're doing is actually screen printing it directly onto that carrier substrate, and then sending that out to companies that then heat apply that as they need it onto their products.
Excellent. Thanks for doing that.
Gotcha. So, and since I'm new to the industry and I get to be the foil for some of these questions and play the noob, and I can do that very, very well. What kind, if I was a screen printer or if I was an embroiderer, and I'm thinking that this might make sense, what kind of equipment would I need to use first, and then we'll talk about why. So I just want to what kind of investment would I have to make if I wanted to do this kind of a project before I take the time to really see what the business aspects of it might be?
Yeah, so really all you need is a heat press. It all starts with that piece of equipment, and that's a pretty small investment. So we recommend a press that would probably run the range of $1,000. So it's a small startup investment. $1,000, $1,500 gets you a pretty high quality heat press. Many of these embroiderers already have a heat press as part of their setup. If you're doing heat transfer vinyl, you need a heat press already. So in a lot of cases, it's equipment that these businesses already have. But to get started, it's just a heat press. It's a very small investment.
Gotcha. Cool. So then, assuming that I have a heat press sitting around and I'm thinking that this is something that I want to explore, what are kind of the light bulb concepts or business cases that walk in that I should immediately start thinking, hey, I want to contact F&M about this?
Yeah, for sure. So, if there's some immediate things that come to mind. One is inventory flexibility and scalability. So, when you're thinking about stocking a transfer as the graphic instead of stocking fully decorated products. So, let's say you're setting up a team store for a local high school, and you have an Inksoft store, and you have that set up for parents and the community to buy from whenever they want. Well, you can't predict that demand exactly. So instead of screen printing or pre-printing all of that product and having to guess or estimate at the size scale of how many smalls, medium, larges you need, or how many in the gray versus the black shirt do you need, you can just stock the transfer and print on demand, press on demand, as you get orders flowing in. So it provides a ton of inventory flexibility. We see a lot of customers adopt it for that reason. It's also a more scalable option if you're used to using heat transfer vinyl. Instead of cutting and weeding those graphics and that tedious part of using vinyl, when you get a volume of 24, 48 or more pieces, it's a much more efficient process. You've cut out the weeding step in that model. And also just from a cost benefit standpoint, the economics work out pretty well around one color heat transfer. You can buy 100 one color heat transfers for $40. So it's really a perfect match to that e-commerce model where you're going to make a small investment in the graphic. You're going to list these products available for sale online, and instead of tying cash up in inventory, you have a small amount of cash tied up in the transfer inventory, or you're buying transfers just in time because we turn it in 24, 48 hours. You're using your capital instead of investing in inventory that you may or may not sell. You're using that capital to go out and spend it on customer acquisition and marketing and driving retail sales. So we see it as a real complement, and the inventory flexibility becomes a real aha moment for a lot of our customers.
Okay, so again, playing the noob, my name got mispronounced, just like I had been doing FM with an ampersand, but my name got mispronounced all the time in high school at wrestling tournaments. But I would, so I would go out into the cafeteria area where there was usually somebody with a heat press. I can remember this. Doing some little customized shirts on site and everything, and I would get my name put on the shirt in whatever mispronounced way that it was done for that tournament, just as a kick. What are the event type of situations? Is doing a sporting event or a community festival or those kind of projects, are those the business type of opportunities that people look for when they need to be thinking about doing heat transfers?
Yeah. So, I mean, we see a variety of models. We see e-commerce customers. We also see event decorators, like you're describing, and some of them it's sort of an add-on service that they provide as part of their community dealer T-shirt shop, and some of them that's their primary business. They just focus on events, and the benefit of combining screen printed heat transfers like we provide with a heat transfer vinyl solution. If you're going to an event, a lot of times the graphic that's on the front of that shirt is the event logo or some standard graphic that is for that event. Well, we can pre-print all of those transfers and drive the cost per unit way down and make it so that you have those transfers on hand for that event, or you can pre-print some of those shirts with those transfers and then use heat transfer vinyl to customize the name or the number that's going on the back of that shirt. So it's a perfect complement to that. And we see a lot of event decorators doing this because they'll take the same set of blanks. So they'll take, an ash t-shirt or a heather gray, hoodie, and they offer the same set of blanks from event to event to event. And they're bringing transfers with them. And if they sell out of the transfers, great. But if they don't sell out of the apparel, they just take that apparel to the next event, put a different set of transfers on it for the next, wrestling tournament, whatever it is they're going to next.
Gotcha. So, what are some of the benefits that we haven't really considered, or that might be beyond the first thing that we think about? It seems like that this would be a fairly clean operation for me as a printer or as an embroiderer to have you make the mess and clean up the mess rather than me doing it. Have you heard of people really enjoying that aspect of things, or is there something in addition to that might be a benefit that we haven't discussed yet?
Lots of t-shirt shops, apparel shops, they start with one piece of equipment, and those that start with embroidery, they learn a process with embroidery that's clean, right? There's needles and thread. There's not ink and chemistry. They're not reclaiming screens. They're not managing water. They're not dealing with the messy ink process. And so they get good at embroidery, but they get demand for screen printed work. And so they can do that, a few ways. They can either contract with a local screen printer, but then they're sharing that customer, or they can invest in screen printing equipment, but that's adding additional overhead for volume that they may not be able to support year round. And so a heat transfer press and using screen printing heat transfers is a perfect complement to an embroidery business. They can keep a clean operation. It takes up very little square footage, right? You put it on a countertop. They can add capacity by just adding additional heat presses at a very low investment. And really the same staff that is trained to set up the embroidery equipment has flexibility in their schedule. They're setting up an embroidery machine and waiting for it to sew. While it's sewing, they can go over and work a heat press. They can press out a few shirts, take a break, go back, set up the next set of goods to be embroidered, and switch back and forth. And we see a lot of embroidery shops embrace using screen printed heat transfers because they can offer a screen printed product without the additional overhead of actually doing the work. It's a clean, nice, tidy add-on to their operation, and they don't have to extend their staff. They don't have to have particularly, ramp up any overhead or ramp up any additional staff or go through a training learning curve. You can teach somebody to heat press in minutes and hours, not days and weeks.
Gotcha. Low skill. Well, Nathan, you've flagged an interesting term, and I have a two-part question. You mentioned capacity. So question number one, I'd love your insight into how, as a traditional decorator print shop operation who is generally manufacturing focused, we're very concerned about the process, and the process is a signal of our productivity, and it's just a measure, right? So when I'm looking at capacity and scheduling and resource allocation, what are your insights into how do I make a decision about, hey, let's do this job in-house with the equipment and process and staff we have, versus, hey, is this a good candidate to send to our partners at FM to be printed and then shipped back to us in 24 to 48 hours? The second question is, let's talk about overcapacity, meaning we've heard from a lot of Inksoft customers that, hey, we're slammed. We can't even consider or contemplate taking on a new order. Yet we have sales tools and resources that would allow us to drive more revenue in our peak or busy season. So again, two-part question. Give us some insights into how do I make a decision about what orders to delegate? What's the logic and rationale? And then secondly, how do I start to think about transforming my business and getting away from the mindset of we're at capacity, I can't take on another shift. Give us some insights there from your experience.
So the first conversation will be around what is your current capacity, right? Is this a shop that is strictly DTG, that is just doing direct to garment printing, or is it a screen printing shop? And so depending on what your capabilities are, that sort of steers the conversation. But I'll use DTG as an example. Digital capacity is expensive. Buying a DTG printer, and then when you fill that capacity, the cost of additional capacity is also it's that investment again and again and again. And oftentimes you get to the place where, if it's the fourth quarter, you have more demand than your capacity can meet, but you don't want to invest in additional capacity just to have that demand drop in the first quarter. And now for three quarters out of the year, you've got equipment that's sitting idle. So bolting on a heat press to that kind of an operation makes a ton of sense, because you can take products where you have consistent demand for a design and shift it from digital printing, move it to heat transfer, and now you've opened up a lot of capacity. So your digital machine can still do your one-off designs, but when you have 24, 48, 100, 500 for a particular graphic, now you move that into transfers. Not only have you dropped the cost per print, but you've opened up capacity without a major investment. And it's also, when you think about scale, I like to encourage people to think about it both ways, right? A lot of people look at the fourth quarter coming or their busy season coming and think, how do I get through that season? But what they don't consider is what happens after that season if they've made a big investment to add additional capacity that now they can't fill the rest of the year, right? And so then that becomes this nut they're trying to crack every month after that. And so think about scaling up and scaling down when you're looking at outsourcing.
Got it.
So a question comes to mind for me. Our clients are very versed in doing web stores that pop up and are open for a couple of weeks, and the parents can order the sports apparel or the dance apparel or any of those kind of issues, and then those stores close. And my kids are in the ballet world, and I can tell you that there are going to be at least 5 parents, me included, that spaced off the deadline, and now we want the product. And so there's a 2-part question here. One is, maybe it's one question, but one is, how can I, as a decorator, make sure that, say, if I were to use a heat transfer from you to handle, say, the late coming type of orders, or the people that were after the fact, is there a way, or how do you approach the art side of things to make sure that anything that I would do that was maybe after the batch is a really, really close match to what was done in the batch that I did during the window and the open batch printing? I guess, what kind of best practices should people be thinking about in those kind of situations?
So I love the service you provide as far as giving our, the community dealer, giving the t-shirt shop the ability to create a web store and sell in the way the customer wants to buy, right? I have children too. Mine were involved in swimming. I hated when they brought home a paper order form, right? Part of me died inside. Being in the industry, seeing a paper order form come back from swim practice in a bag with a wet towel. And, my wife's got to write a check. Like, I don't even know where the checkbook is, right? Nobody wants that experience. So as all of these shops now are taking advantage of the capability that you're giving them, it's created a new strain, which is what you're alluding to. This challenge of, well, if I have a web store, then anybody can order at any time, and they can order different quantities. How do I manage that? And the first sort of movement we've seen is this ordering window, right? This order by a certain period of time. We're going to batch all the orders together, and then everybody will get theirs at the same time. And that allows you to set up for screen printing, right? That's what that's there for. So you can build up enough quantity to go and direct screen print that to the apparel. But you can also batch that up and order heat transfers, and you can order additional heat transfers. And so what I think about is, when you're planning a program for a web store, is to consolidate the graphic. So you can offer variety by offering different blanks, different colors of blanks, but to keep your graphic limited to one or two designs or three designs. If you limit the amount of designs that you're offering and you add variety by offering different blanks, you can give the customer plenty of options to choose from, but you can take an inventory position on just the graphic alone, and you can keep that store open beyond the initial ordering window. Or you can plan, if you're going to offer more designs, choose a few designs that you'll make available after the fact. So you may screen print some of the designs if you have that capability in-house, but you may choose to order heat transfers for others that you'll keep extra on hand. And then after the ordering window closes for, let's say it's the beginning of the season, you might close that ordering window. You might discontinue some of the designs and some of the shirt styles, but you'll keep some available that are those that you chose to put into a screen printed heat transfer that you'll keep in inventory that allows you to take the next order, satisfy additional customers, and have that ongoing flexibility. And also, if you have those transfers, you can also then introduce some things after the season. It's a way of remarketing back to that customer base, taking that same graphic, putting it on a different shirt style. Now it's a new product that you can remarket back to that same customer base.
I really like that. Or use it as a sample for next year's stuff of putting it on, hey, here's the design that I know that you love, and here's what we want to do this year as a sample on a new piece of apparel. That could be great.
Yeah, it's really from a long tail of demand.
Exactly. And maybe to explore Kevin's question a bit deeper, go one level deeper, thinking about the mechanics of ordering transfers, when we talk about best practices, if I'm looking at the same colorways, walk us through the process of how you guys actually manufacture. Like we've heard the term gang sheet, and walk us through if I really wanted to optimize my spend and maintain low costs and get order fulfillment streamlined through you all. What are the things I need to be thinking through?
Yeah, so unfortunately, we have some insider terms that we've brought along throughout the years, and so we'll try to find some of those and make it a little bit more simple. But when you're setting up your artwork, we do recommend Adobe Illustrator, CorelDRAW, Photoshop. Invest in some software to get yourself some vector artwork, some clean artwork that you can use. We can't take Photoshop images if they're 300 DPI, but you can set up your artwork with us one of two ways. So we have a per design pricing. So it's just whatever the size of your image is. There's pricing that's sort of a flat rate. That's basic so that you can make a quick decision. And then we also have a gang sheet offering. So gang sheet is basically real estate. We have a 12 3/4 by 19-inch sheet. You take that sheet and you set up your artboard. So if you're working in Illustrator, you're working in CorelDRAW, you set up your artboard, your canvas to that size, and then you can nest your designs within that space. So if you want to put a left chest with a full back, lay it out within that space, the size that you want it to print. Give yourself a 1/4-inch space in between there to run a pair of scissors in between, or give yourself room to use a paper cutter so that you can cut those graphics apart when you receive them. So you can set up a gang sheet that way and lay it out exactly how you want to print. Just save that as one file, and then we'll send it back to you as one sheet. Or you can buy it as a single image where we'll actually cut it down to that individual image. And that gives you a little bit more efficiency when you're just grabbing it and pressing it. It cuts out the cutting step for you. But we give you both of those options. Either way you want to order, as a single image or as a gang sheet. And when you have a lot of small graphics, sometimes it's better to go to the gang sheet because you can really drive down your costs by grouping those things together. When you're grouping, just consider the image color. So you can combine graphics that are the same color together on the same sheet, with the exception of full color process. So we do offer a full color option that is a true screen printed CMYK. So we have spot colors for 1, 2, and 3 color designs, and then we go to full color. So if you have a photographic image, something that has a lot of colors, high color count, gradients, and high complexity. Full color is a great option for that, where we screen print the cyan, magenta, yellow, black. We screen print a white underbase, and it allows you to put together a lot of high color graphics. And gang sheets are a really good solution for our full color option as well.
That's awesome. And let me relate this. I think that I want to make sure our listeners understand what the business opportunity here. You were mentioning the sales opportunity by offering an online store and then offering different graphics that speak to maybe different audiences, right? So maybe the primary audience is the participants on the swim club, but there's also, swim mom and swim dad and swim grandpa, and there's boosters and alumni, and there's other consumers that might want a graphic and a product that speaks to them, right, their tribe. So, we've heard a lot of Inksoft customers. One of the common questions we get is, well, hey, what happens if I only get an order for 5 T-shirts for mom, the mom graphic? And so, if I'm designing an online store and I'm being considerate of using the same maybe colorways for the graphic, it's possible to then send an order to FM and get those gang sheets with the primary designs nested with those secondary designs. And no longer am I concerned about what if I only sell 5 units. That's suddenly a great thing. I sold 5 units at retail pricing, right? So is there any other insights that need to be considered there before we close that topic?
Yeah, that's a great use case. We see a lot of that college bookstore look of a design where you have sort of the basic graphic, right? It's a collegiate look or a school look, but then there's a space for a name drop. And so where we see people really utilizing gang sheets is that use case that you just mentioned. So there's the graphic that's really designed for the participant of the sport, but then they'll fill out the gang sheet with mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, booster, whatever else they want to drop in there as just the name drops. And then they'll cut those out and use them as they need them. And it just allows them to add an additional level of personalization, drive the price point up of that item, drive the sales. And we always think about there's the on the field sales, and then there's also a lot more money spent in the stands, right? And we want to be able to target both of those audiences when we go to market.
I love that on the field versus in the stands.
And we're going to flag right now. We're going to rip that.
We are so going to steal that. It's not even funny because there are 40,000 people in the stands.
Yeah. When you're in the nosebleeds and you look around like in an NFL stadium, you're like, wow, that's a lot of merch, right? Everybody's wearing your jersey.
Cool. So one of my favorite kind of catch-all questions for any kind of interview and podcast is, are there questions that we should be asking that we haven't yet?
Yeah. One of the things we haven't talked about was really, how to use transfers to solve some of the decoration challenges. And so there are, a movement towards synthetic fabrics. We're seeing a lot of polyester, a lot of compression material into the market really since Under Armour sort of changed the game. Everybody's moved to that, and so we see this movement towards a need for a lower temperature application. And really, polyester is heat sensitive fabric because the fabric is dyed. Everyone's concerned about dye migration, and that's really what happens when you get that garment too hot. The dyes that provide the color in the garment can bleed through the print, and a lot of screen printers struggle with this. They use a white underbase, they print, they flash, they cure, they print, they flash, they cure, and it looks great. And then a couple days later, the red of the jerseys bled through their white and they turn it pink. And what happened there? Well, these fabrics are now heat sensitive. And so there need solutions that cure at a lower temperature. So you see a lot more low cure inks in the direct screen printing world. But we've also developed heat transfer products that apply at a low temperature. So we actually have a water-based product that we developed for the pro sports replica jerseys that we've extended that offering to our entire customer base now. So we developed this product around jerseys that had tremendous heat sensitivity issues and tremendous dye migration issues that apply at 240 degrees. So where a traditional transfer would apply between 325 and 375, we've dropped that temperature all the way down to 240 degrees to allow us to go on to polyesters, to have a soft hand feel still, to be able to block dye migration, to be able to stretch and rebound with the compression materials. So as you move from cotton to more synthetic fabrics, more performance fabrics, heat transfers offer a lot of flexibility. It's funny, the word heat's in the title, but it's actually a low heat application that allows you to prevent some of those dye migration challenges that we see becoming more and more of a challenge in the market. And typically, those are expensive products that you're decorating, right? Those are higher value items that you're selling, and you don't want to have quality challenges in those products coming back because of dye migration issues after you've delivered them to the customer.
Nice. Well, Nathan, I'm going to hit you with a few curveballs here, so brace yourself.
Okay.
Tell me about your experience and maybe how heat transfers can solve the dilemma that decorators generally face, which is, hey, I have a clever idea for a shirt, or hey, I'm starting up a label or a brand. I want you to participate in it. So is there a use case for transfers to service that customer that's actually willing to invest in their label or their brand? Give us your sensibilities on what that might look like.
Yeah, so I love this question. Not a curveball at all. And I'm just so I understand. When you say your brand, you mean they're creating their own content that they want to go sell to direct to consumer,
Exactly.
right? Okay. So 10 years ago, if somebody would have approached me, and this happened, I had this conversation hundreds of times on the ISS, the Printware circuit, the trade shows. You would get somebody coming to that trade show and saying, "I'm going to start my own clothing line." And it was everything I could do to try to convince them, like, just put that in put it in your 401k, find a mutual fund, do not start a clothing line. Getting distribution was impossible a decade ago. Today, that's our fastest growing customer. Our fastest growing customer is not the local t-shirt shop. It is the person who starts a side hustle, who says, "I've got a great idea for a design. I'm going to take that design and test it out. I'm going to put it available for sale. I might use, depending on the channel that makes sense, through Facebook groups, through Etsy, selling it on Amazon, some other, marketplace, or they're going to set up their own website and, use their own marketing and drive traffic to that by, marketing through Instagram or through Facebook." The ability to target a specific audience is remarkable. And so you can get that design on a t-shirt in front of that audience for dollars, like $10, right? To boost a Facebook post. It doesn't cost that much to get that in front of that customer. So distribution was the hard part. Before, to start a clothing line, you had to get retail distribution. You had to work through distributors. It was impossible to get anybody's attention and to get your product in front of someone else. So there are very few success stories. Today, you can be targeting a specific demographic, and we have tons of examples of this in our customer base, where they're around a hyper-specific niche, whether it's about supporting animal rights or politics, or and it's even a subset of the demographic that they're targeting, and they're able to put content out there really for low risk. So they'll do a one color graphic. Let's say they buy 100 of them. That's $40. Let's say they set up a web store and they boost a Facebook post for another $10. Very little risk put out there to see whether the design is going to succeed or fail. And I'm a big believer in fail fast, fail cheap, right? Put it out there and let the market tell you whether they're going to adopt it. So we see this happening over and over and over again. And these are some of our fastest growing customers who are really just staying on top of trends, staying on top of their community, being active and social, and really, knowing their tribe and creating content that, audiences, that they know who's authentic and who's not. They can smell their own. And so if you're, have the ability to create content for a specific audience that resonates with them, this is the time, right? To actually start that and go after it. I'm telling you, this is just our fastest growing customer base. These are the people that are winning.
Give me a handle on the sweet spot. So if I'm a traditional decorator, traditional screen printer, and I want to experiment with this notion of transfers, I see the business op, I get it. If I were to try to sort out and find the first job that I'm going to use as a candidate to really experiment here and see what the value chain looks like, what jobs should I be looking at? What should be flagged? What criteria should I use to identify those jobs?
So first is the artwork, right? I look at the art. If it's one color, two color, three color, or full color, transfers make a ton of sense for that. Really, one color is a great solution. Full color is a great solution. That's where the value is. And then I'd also look at the quantity that you need to decorate. So if it's going to be a one-time order, anything less than 12 pieces, I consider using heat transfer vinyl or direct to garment printing for a low MOQ like that. When you start getting into the 24, 48, 72, that's the transfer sweet spot. Nice. And as you have repeated, or especially if there's going to be repeat business, right? So if you don't know what the ongoing demand is going to be, that's where that long tail extends for transfers. And so at some point, it does make sense to go and set up in screen print. If you know you're going to sell 5,000 of a unit, of a particular design, direct screen printing is probably going to be a lower cost per print. And it's why we offer that service, right? So in addition to being a heat transfer provider, we also have an extension of the company. We decorate 30,000 garments a day as well, fully decorated for a small subset of our customers who have those kinds of volume demands. Most of our customer base doesn't have that kind of volume demand. Most of them are decorating, on average, 100 shirts at a time. 100 is really the sweet spot we see in transfers. That's the average order quantity. We see that flowing in all day, every day. And a lot of times they're doing 72 shirts and then they're buying 100 transfers to be able to fill in when they need a few extra designs or they want to have some samples for going forward. So they bake into the order cost some additional transfers to have for that extension of the sale, to service the long tail, or to make samples going forward.
Smart. So, Nathan, this is the point of the podcast where we get to let you brag a little bit about the organization. But really, let me set you up here. I'm imagining our listeners saying, yeah, but why FM? Why not other transfer manufacturers and organizations? I'm pretty confident because I've known you for a long time and I've seen the technology you guys have built and the equipment investments and infrastructure investments. But from your perspective, why FM compared to other manufacturers?
Yeah, I wouldn't have given 14 years of my life to it if I didn't love it and didn't believe in it, right? So I've grown up in this business. I love it. I love the people that I've had the benefit of working alongside. So I know our team, and I would start there. We have great people who care greatly about our customers, and we're trying to grow a company. And that's not for the faint of heart. You guys have experienced a lot of growth, and so you learn a lot of things along the way. And we like to partner with our customers and understand that they have the same entrepreneurial spirit that we have. And they're trying to grow a business. They're trying to acquire customers, figure out how to service them, how to provide more value. And we're the same way. And the thing about the relationship that we have with our customers, we have to continue to earn the right to earn your business. So we may get this project, we have got to deliver on it and position you to deliver to your customer. And so we have to earn it every day. Because your reputation's on the line in delivering to your end customer. So I just love that we're positioned that way. So our alignment to our customer, our goals are completely aligned. We can't sell transfers unless you're out there selling t-shirts. We can't do decoration for you unless you grow to the place where you need high volume decoration. And so we're completely aligned with trying to help our customers grow there. So all of our investment, all of the growth, the extension that we've had, we've positioned ourselves that way. So when I talk about numbers and bragging about 30,000 units screen printed a day, our ability to screen print 200,000, 300,000 transfers each day. So every day out of, say, 250,000 transfers will ship out the door. Those are impressive numbers, but those are individual opportunities to service specific customers. So as we add capacity, as we extend what we're trying to do and invest in technology, it's all about creating a customer experience that makes us easy to do business with and makes us worth coming back to do business with. You have to be able to make money using our product in order to get a repeat order from you. I don't necessarily, we don't win by acquiring a customer and getting one order from them. We win by acquiring them and servicing them over the lifetime and really enjoying supporting their growth. And so, as a company, that's how we approach it. We believe that we grow with our customers and we're doing everything we can to align ourselves to that. So, I appreciate the opportunity to speak about it a little bit.
Yeah, great. Well, we're excited to line up closely with your organization. And, we were seeking out a heat transfer partner, and that's how our conversation began ages ago. And so excited to get you on the podcast. So, Nathan, we're going to link to a bunch of the videos that you folks have produced that show the process and give insights and tips. We'll link to some of your social channels so people can dig in more. And we'll link to the ability to get a sample kit. And I think this is a great resource to really start to see the quality and the options that are available from your product line. Is there anything else to add in terms of how our listeners can reach out to you folks and learn more?
You guys are going to link it up. So I would say just follow through on those links and make sure you request a sample pack. It's free. When you do that, we'll get you into a campaign where you're going to get more information, educational information on getting started. But that sample pack's a really, really valuable tool. We give you every of our transfer options to try out. And again, it's about earning the opportunity to earn your business, right? Take the transfers, apply them, wash test them, have confidence in the product and the process. And you'll have, once you do that, you'll be in our pipeline to be able to contact us to get your questions answered and figure out how it's going to fit into your particular use case. And we also have an onboarding team. So we have individuals, Kristen and AJ, who do a fantastic job onboarding all of our new customers. And when you get into that process, Kristen's got 14 years experience too. She's one of the first hires that I made here. So that's the kind of person you'll be working with, who has talked to thousands of shops, has helped them get started, has helped them sort of answer their specific questions, maybe things we didn't cover in the podcast. You can have the same kind of conversation with one of our onboarding team when you get started. So I appreciate the opportunity to share that.
That's great.
That's great. Yeah, we will definitely put some links up there and make sure that people get hooked up. That'll be on inksoft.com in our Learn section, at least to begin with, and you'll be able to find it there.
Well, perfect. Well, Nathan, again, thanks for taking the time to join us and sharing insights. And we'll probably have to twist your arm to get you on another episode. Maybe we can find some additional topics to explore.
I'd love to.
Awesome.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much.